It is time for Daniel in the Deacon's Den. Good morning to you, Deacon Dan Brahier.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Ron. How are you this morning?
Great. I'm thinking some cool thoughts. I kind of wish I was in Alaska right now.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's so true. Right now in Anchorage, it's it's getting down to about 40 something at night, and it gets up to maybe 60 or 65 during the day. And we just got back a day or so ago, and to go from the 38, 40 degree night to 98 degrees within 24 hours was like a shock to the system.
Oh, yeah.
We went for a walk last evening. It was like 9 o'clock, and it was still 95 degrees. What the heck is going on? It was a wonderful trip. So my wife and I were in Alaska for a couple of weeks. It's the first time we'd ever been there. And actually, we have visited all 49 states together, other than Alaska. So we decided we're going to check the last box with this trip.
That's fabulous.
It was just a beautiful trip. And one of the things that we did when we were there, not unexpectedly, is to visit a lot of the Catholic churches, and for Sunday and a couple of daily masses and that sort of thing. And one of the probably most memorable experiences we had was this last weekend. We went to a church called Holy Mary of Guadalupe Catholic Church, and it's right near Denali National Park. And Denali is really a beautiful place. I don't know if you guys ever been to Alaska.
No, I have. Yeah, to actually launch a Catholic radio station in Fairbanks.
Wow,
is that right?
Yeah,
that's amazing. Fairbanks used to be kind of mission territory, and it still kind of is, but now it is its own diocese.
Yeah.
But Denali, only 30% of the people who visit the national park ever actually see Mount Denali because it's so, it's over 20,000 feet, and so it's covered in clouds. And we had the joy of seeing it, so we were in that 30%, which was really cool. But there's a Catholic church right near there, and we went to Mass Saturday night, and it's interesting because the building looks like an office building in a sense. It turns out it basically is, or it was a general use kind of structure, and then it was donated to the diocese some time ago and was open as a Catholic church. And the sanctuary there probably only seats maybe 80 to 100 people, if that. And there were probably maybe 25 people at Mass. I'm not sure there were even that many. Now they tend to get most of their people on Sunday morning and not Saturday night there, but it was just a fascinating experience, something I've reflected a lot on in the last few days, because when we got into the parking lot, we're parking, and a woman literally greeted us in the parking lot.
Oh,
she
wow.
Came and, and she showed us around. She showed us where to park. She asked us to tell us about ourselves. And turns out that she was doing that basically with every person that came in the door.
Wow.
And she kind of carefully remembers their names and their stories. And, and she asked me what I do. I told her I was a deacon. Once she found that out, she asked me to read one of the scripture readings and to lead the universal prayers. And then she introduced me to the priest, and he asked me if I'd assist with distribution of precious blood at communion, and asked my wife to do the other readings. So that's just like they just brought us right into the community immediately, which was so neat. And then before the conclusion of Mass, that same woman that had greeted us at the door, she stood up and had us go all the way around the room, and each person introduced themselves and where we're from and what we do and so forth. And the priest, Father Francis, was so kind, and he gave us a special blessing before concluding Mass, and it was just a beautiful experience. And then after Mass, they invited everyone to stay, and I'm telling you, one of the women in the congregation had made chocolate chip cookies, and they were the best, literally the best homemade chocolate chip cookies ever had in my life. Just really crispy on the outside and squishy on the inside. They were amazing. And so we stood and we talked and we visited and we shared and we laughed, and people who were visiting as well as people who were from there. It just reminded me of there's a couple of things in the Catholic Catechism of the Church that really seem to be reflected there. So there's one statement, I'll quote the Catechism here. One paragraph says, "The Church is the house of all God's children, open and welcoming." And there's another place in the Catechism that says, "No one is without family in this world the church is a home and a family for everyone. And that's exactly how we felt when we went in. And it reminded us of a conversation we had. We did a cruise before we did the land portion. And we had talked with this woman on the cruise because I was leading Liturgy of the Hours on the cruise ship, which was really cool. And we were having a conversation with a woman there who said that every time she gets to a port, we're embarking, that she will find the Catholic Church there and go and visit it, because she said, I feel at home. Like anywhere I am in the world, I can just get off the ship and walk into the Catholic Church, and I immediately have a connection with all the people in that room. And that's how we were feeling on Saturday, just like these were all of our brothers and sisters that we had never met before, And I was so incredibly impressed at their ability to just reach out, make us feel at home. And I was thinking, that's what hospitality is all about. And so often we forget that. We get so caught up, and we all do it. You go to church and we're in a rush to park, we're in a rush to get out, and we're in our own head, and we're not even noticing the person sitting next to us. But I would go back to this parish in a heartbeat, because there's a genuine sense of caring for other people. And so it just reminded me, and I think maybe a reminder to all of us, that when other people walk into our parish church, it's our responsibility to make sure that those people feel at home. And so that when Mass is over and they've had an opportunity to interact with us, they would feel the same way that Ann and I are feeling, which is, I really wish that I could go back to that church again, because I so much felt at home there. And so I had to ask myself after that visit, and that wasn't the only church we had that experience, it's just the most recent one here, that I had to ask myself, what have I done lately to really reach out and make somebody else feel at home in my own parish? Whether it's somebody I see every week and I'm catching up with, or someone who is just visiting, because we know the visitors. Especially a parish like St. Thomas More in Bowling Green, we serve mostly students, so during the summer, people come to visit that are here on vacation and so forth, and who they are, because they're not the normal people that you see every week. What am I doing to actually walk up to that person and say, hi, where are you from? What's your name? What's your story? Because that's what the Catholic Church is all about. It is a universal church that allows us to make everybody feel at home, no matter where they are in the world. And it just reminded me that we need to do a better job of that in our own lives.
Absolutely. People talk about Southern hospitality. Of course, those were examples of extreme Northern hospitality, but that's the same type of hospitality that every parish should have at all times, so that, because you never know who's going to come in, and even those that come every week, and you see them all the time. As an usher, I see a lot of familiar faces every week. You don't just focus on the ones you've never met before. You focus on everybody that comes in that door, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and finding out what's going on in their lives. There's a song by Casting Crowns, who's one of my favorite Christian bands, and the song says, we could talk about the weather, but let's talk about something else, is effectively what the line is saying. And I think that's what it is. It's kind of like, it's really easy to walk up to somebody at church and say, how you doing? Good. Boy, sure is warm out here today, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. And then they walk in and that's all as opposed to, what's going on in your week? How is your son doing? Hey, your daughter got married this summer. How did the wedding go? Sort of digging deeper into the lives of other people and truly connecting, because that's what families do. When you get together with family, what do? You sit down and you talk about your lives and your jobs and your kids and what you did yesterday and what you're planning to do this fall and what are you doing for Christmas. And there's no reason we can't and shouldn't be having that same conversation, sharing our lives and breaking open our lives within our own parish, so that the church truly does that community building that we're supposed to be doing. And the reason why we're there to glorify God, and we glorify Him through connecting with one another, sharing that same faith.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, of course, there's some do's and don'ts. I mean, some things you don't want to bring up. It's like, how'd that indictment thing work out? You don't really want to go there,
but that's true.
A lot of great questions that you can ask.
Thank you, Deacon Dan.
You're welcome.
Have a wonderful week.